Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday. Hopefully you all are staying weather aware. You saw that in the little logo that just popped up before me. Meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees here. We are tracking rain and storms, but kind of a 1-2 punch kind of day here in the Charlotte area where we're tracking rain and storms now, but the bigger impact is actually going to be the second half of the afternoon as we are sunny and honestly pretty warm, but the winds are going to be cranking. So you can kind of see here from our quad box camera right now, rain and storms already moving through the area. I'm going to zoom in a little bit to the Dallas, North Carolina tower cam because I think it's pretty cool to see how quickly these clouds are racing. I do want to preface this by telling you that we have no severe storms in the area right now, but we have had reports of some strong storms. So what I mean by that is wind gusts need to be above 58 miles per hour for technically a severe thunderstorm warning to be issued. You need 58-mile-per-hour winds or 1-inch hail or a tornado on the ground. Of course, we don't have any of the two latter, so it's the wind, right? We've had some reports of about 50 miles per hour that have been radar indicated in a few spots, especially south of the Charlotte metro. So wide view here, satellite and radar, you can see where the storms are moving right now. Heavy pockets of rain, especially down in Lancaster County, southern Chester County, southwestern Union County, and moving into Anson. That's where we have kind of some of those heavier winds. I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to break out a little bit, kind of a little bit different than normal. So let's zoom in here. I'm going to kind of track out some of these for you. So you can still see lots of lightning here from this cell that right now is right around the Great Falls, Fort Lawn area, parts of Lancaster. You can see multiple lightning strikes there. And of course, these storms are mostly moving off to the east and northeast. So some of these are still going to impact areas like Tradesville, Marshville, and those areas. And all the ones I just mentioned, as we switch over to our velocity tool, you'll see a few of these indicating some higher winds. So let's turn some of that on. You can see 30-mile-per-hour winds reported in portions of York County. There's a 36 there. There's a 40. That's northern Chester County. You can see a 25 again. Some of this terminal velocity we kind of keep a close eye on because, of course, the green is wind moving toward the radar site. Red is moving away. That's how we kind of track the potential for some rotation with tornadoes. Thankfully, this is not looking really at this point like there's any kind of rotation with any of these cells, but pay very close attention to one little feature here. This. Do you guys see kind of how that looks like it's bowing out a little bit? That is indicative of really strong winds. So oftentimes if we were talking just a straight up severe weather threat, I would be telling you, of course, gusty mile-per-hour winds, in excess of 58 miles per hour. We got to stay inside. Again, right now they're not reaching this threshold, but these storms are rapidly moving at about 60 to 70 miles per hour. So there is still that chance that we could have an isolated strong wind gust, even an isolated downburst. So still something that we really need to monitor here really over the next few hours. I wanted to go live here now just because we're kind of at that peak action right now. I think peak action really from now, likely through about 11 o'clock, at least for Charlotte. You can see how quickly these storms are moving out. We still have to watch this activity that's back toward the west, but how quickly these storms are moving. I mean, I really think it's those areas mostly south of Charlotte through about this line here that will continue to see that risk. But of course, I'll be keeping a close eye on it for you here throughout the day. So let's talk timing and let's talk impact of the winds because of course I'm tracking the rain and storms right now, but it's probably not our biggest impact throughout the day. So we have a lot of warmth, a lot of moisture over us. That's what's prompted kind of by some of these winds. You can see them coming in from the south and west here. That of course is typically indicative of a really warm air coming in from the Gulf of Mexico. So when we have a southwesterly wind, that's what we often refer to as the blowtorch here in the Charlotte area. And that's why even as the storm system moves through, we could see temperatures getting close to 80 degrees. However, as we progress throughout the day, what's eventually going to happen is that we're going to see these rain and storms moving out, right? So here we are at 1 o'clock, here we are at 2 o'clock, and here we are at 3 o'clock. At 3 o'clock, everyone is dry. And in fact, a lot of these storms are picking up a little bit quicker. So I do think Charlotte will be dry by about noon, and we'll probably be dry closer to about 2 o'clock for most of the area. But the reason why I'm showing you this future track, even though it's a little bit backwards, is that you see here behind the system that all of this wind kind of lingers. Even though we're going to turn sunny, we still see a lot of that wind. And that's why we kind of have that 1-2 punch in terms of timing. We have rain and storms now, but the winds are going to be impacting us for the entirety of the day. There's a very small window of opportunity for the storms. and of course the rain chances. But notice the high winds are pretty much all day, and then you have the power outages on top of that. Power outages can caused by wind, of course, pretty much one of two ways. One, the wind is strong enough, like with a hurricane, to knock down the power lines themselves, or you have a lot of heavy rain that can saturate the ground, and that will loosen up, the trees and the branches. So then a wind gust comes through, that knocks over the tree, picks up the branch, and that is what leads to the power outage. But notice that it's the winds that we're really going to notice all day long. In fact, I really think between about 6, 7, 8 o'clock, they could be some of their highest. So let's talk about where we could see some of the stronger winds pretty much now through noon. Again, this is mainly going to be south of Charlotte, where it's a little bit more unstable. Those are the areas we were just tracking. Other than wind gusts, don't anticipate anything else to be severe. So again, we're pretty much now in that threat of some strong storms for these areas, but it's the wind that we're tracking all day long. So $1,000,000 question is, how high could those winds be? Well, gust potential up to about 50 miles per hour for the Piedmont and about 65 miles per hour up toward the mountains. Now, I have been looking this morning. We had some of this yesterday and the day before. A few wind gusts isolated, potentially even close to 70 miles per hour in portions of the mountains. I do think this is important to note because think about it like this, right? So we know that with elevation, the winds do get higher as we go higher in elevation. So if we're talking about a 65, 70 mile per hour wind potential in places like Boone and Jefferson, if that were to come to fruition, let's go up in elevation, right? What comes next? Beech Mountain, Sugar Mountain, those areas could be getting into the 80s. And then you go to Grandfather Mountain, the potential even for the 90s. I mean, it's a very real possibility, especially as these winds hit their peak. So you have to monitor this, especially even for folks in the mountains that do see these winds higher a lot of the time. A high wind warning is a little bit more rare than a wind advisory. So today they're under that high wind warning and we're under a wind advisory. So this is a notch above what folks normally see in these areas. So just a little bit of meteorology really quick before I let y'all go, just because I like to talk about this. So one of the reasons why we have such strong winds behind the storm system, there's kind of multiple, but the one thing is that this is a really large storm system, really large wind field. And so we have the low pressure system now moving through, and we have high pressure that'll eventually move in behind it. Anytime highs and lows are close together, we talk about tight pressure gradients, that drives higher winds. So the further the high and low are apart, the weaker winds will be. Closer they are together, the stronger they'll be. And pretty much high and low pressure is what drives winds in the first place. So we have that. We have a large wind field, and what's going to happen with this wind is it's going to go over the mountains and then allow it to kind of push down and mix close to the surface. So because of that movement, we're kind of getting those higher winds that normally are way up here that kind of get shoved down closer to the portions of the Piedmont. And that's why not only are they higher in a few spots down there, maybe then a little bit further south, but also because we're going to see them by the second half of the day. So storms now, some wind, more wind later. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's talk wind gusts though, just based on our current model data. I've had some wind gusts, 35, 45, and even a few isolated 50s, again, across most of the Piedmont. And you'll notice around the same time frame, this is around 7 o'clock. I pause this because a lot of our Piedmont wind gusts are highest around this time period, around 7 o'clock. Think about what is happening today. Of course, Charlotte Knights are at home again. We have Charlotte Shout. We have a lot of events going on this weekend. I know there's a black tie event at Bank of America Stadium. So just something to keep in mind. Again, if you have outdoor plans, or maybe you're hosting an outdoor event, things of that nature, if you have tents, they need to be secured down. You could get a tent that could be picked up by 30 mile per hour winds. It has happened at a WCNC event before where they've kind of gotten picked up and we've had to hold them down. And so there's a very real possibility if those wind gusts are 20 miles per hour higher that it could lift off and go somewhere else. If you have a trampoline, Colin Mayfield, if you're listening, he was just talking the other day, I was working for Brad in the studio, about wanting to get a trampoline for the kiddos. Definitely need to make sure that's secured. You don't want that blowing into the neighbor's yard. Don't put your trash cans out today. If you have a birthday party, maybe for your kids, make sure that those blow ups, things like that, the bounce houses, those are secured down, or just bring these items inside, or just collapse them all together. If there is a chance that you really wanted to have an outdoor event today and you don't want to deal with this mess and you can move it, I would move it to Sunday. That would be definitely your best bet. It won't be quite as warm, but it will be sunny and it will be dry and it won't be too bad with a high temperature around 70 degrees. So just make sure you're preparing accordingly. Even these winds are things like, semi-truck drivers, people who drive big car, like a U-Haul, things like that. You got to make sure that you are prepared. You need to have both hands on the wheel. All of these things can be impacted by winds. And then as we progress through early tomorrow morning, you'll notice the winds are dropping substantially and actually really quickly for a lot of the Piedmont. At this point, we're talking wind gusts about 20 miles per hour or so, but in the mountains, we're talking 50s and 60s. So where our winds, I say our just because our studio, of course, is in Charlotte, and that's where I'm recording from right now. But so pretty much if you're I-40 and south, those winds will be highest this evening and then get better through tomorrow morning. The mountains, you're staying elevated for pretty much most of the day, but you're actually likely going to peak very early tomorrow morning. And that's where we're really going to be watching that potential for some of those higher winds, especially at higher elevations. But then finally, we will start to see things get better by the second half of the day. So let's wrap it up with that Guy Roofing 7-day forecast. First of all, happy April 1st, everyone. This forecast is not a joke. Please don't play an April Fool's joke on me and send me any kind of messages like, I just recorded a 100-mile-per-hour wind gust at my house. I will probably automatically not believe you just because of the fact that it is April Fool's Day. But just keep that in mind, of course, be respectful, all those things. Temperatures, even this afternoon, once the rain and storms are over, are going to reach close to 80. So it will be a very warm day, and we will see a lot of sunshine this afternoon. But again, the winds, that's your biggest impact, and that's why we want folks to stay weather aware today. Tomorrow morning, actually a really pleasant start to the day. People will get mad at me for saying that, but our normal high and low this time of year is 45 and 69. Our forecast for tomorrow is 44 and 69. So we are almost picture perfect for April to start off April 2nd. So tomorrow, again, a much better day than today. We get a little bit warmer on Monday. And right now I'm keeping those rain chances low, but there is a small 20% chance that we could see a few sprinkles. I'm kind of watching these trends, and I'll of course update you tomorrow morning on Wake Up Charlotte weekend starting at 6 a.m. Tuesday though and Wednesday we turn a lot warmer, and then we're kind of watching our next change, our next chance to see rain late Thursday and Friday of next week. But overall today is still a day we want you to stay weather aware. Again, no, the rain and storms are moving in now, but that's not necessarily going to be the case all day, but we are going to see those winds all day long. I'll leave you with one more look here at the radar so we can kind of track what's going on. Again, we have this really large expansion here of rain from pretty much Chesterfield County, Chester County that is, all the way up toward Cleveland County, expanding into now portions of Cabarrus County near Kannapolis, Concord. This is kind of that big swath that we have moving through the metro now. I will watch these storms that we have now in southeastern Georgia and heading into portions there of Greenwood and Edgefield, South Carolina, to see if they can hold together to make it all the way here. But I'll only cut into programming or do another update on our storms here on social media, YouTube, Facebook, things like that, if these were to turn severe. So this first stream was really largely just so you guys knew what was going on, just to give you a heads up. We always do a stream, fun fact, if you've never tuned in before, on my Facebook page as well as the WCNC Charlotte's Facebook page around 10 o'clock. Normally it's just a quick weather update and we're not tracking active storms, but that's of course not the case today. And of course, we'll have that tuned in tomorrow morning again at 10 a.m. over on my Facebook page. So make sure you tune in for that. And of course, hopefully we'll see you on Wake Up Charlotte weekend tomorrow morning starting at 6 a.m. Have a great Saturday. Stay safe, stay weather aware, and prepare now for that potential for those higher wind gusts by this afternoon. We'll be tracking those all day long for you. Any changes, any power outage updates, you can trust the WCNC Charlotte weather team. Have a great day.